2 months before he died, Sam Neill stood in front of a camera with a smile that felt impossible to fake. He shared the kind of news every cancer patient hopes to hear one day. His latest scan showed no cancer anywhere in his body. Not a trace. He called it extraordinary. You could hear the relief in his voice. After years of difficult treatment, he finally believed life was opening up again. He even spoke about another film he wanted to make. It sounded like the beginning of a new chapter. But just weeks later, everything changed. How could someone celebrating remission suddenly be gone? On July 13, 2026, Sam Neill died in Sydney, Australia. He was 78 years old. His family described his passing with two simple words that stunned everyone: sudden and unexpected. Even more surprising, they confirmed he was still cancer-free. There had been no relapse. No long public decline. Just weeks after sharing the happiest medical update of his life, he was gone. No official cause of death was released, leaving people struggling to understand how everything could change so quickly. And that mystery only made the loss feel even heavier. Just a few months earlier, Neill had spoken openly about the long road that brought him to that hopeful moment. Years before, he had been diagnosed with a rare and aggressive blood cancer called angioimmunoblastic T-cell lymphoma. At one point, chemotherapy stopped working. He admitted there were moments when the future looked bleak. He had reached the stage where even good news felt unlikely. Then something unexpected happened. A new treatment offered him another chance. But what was so different about it? Neill qualified for an advanced treatment known as CR T-cell therapy. Instead of attacking cancer the way traditional chemotherapy does, the treatment retrained his own immune system to recognize and fight the disease. Against difficult odds, it worked. By the spring of 2026, his scans came back clear. He was officially in remission. He celebrated the news with quiet joy, spoke about future projects, and seemed excited for what was still ahead. Looking back now, those interviews feel completely different. Especially because he had often said he wasn't afraid of dying. At the time, those words sounded thoughtful. After his passing, they became heartbreaking. When the news broke, people across the world searched for answers. His family shared only that he died peacefully at St. Vincent's Private Hospital in Sydney, surrounded by those he loved most. They thanked the doctors and nurses who cared for him in his final hours. There was no anger in their statement. No blame. Only gratitude. That choice said a lot about the man they were remembering. But the wave of emotion that followed wasn't just about a famous actor. It was about the kind of person people believed they had lost. And one voice explained that better than anyone else. Nicole Kidman had known Sam Neill since she was only 18 years old. Long before either of them became global stars, they worked together on the 1989 thriller Dead Calm. Kidman was still at the beginning of her career. The pressure was enormous. A role like that could launch a career or end it before it really started. Sam Neill was already an experienced actor. He could have focused only on his own performance. Instead, he did something much more important. He made sure a nervous young actress felt like she belonged. Why did that small act stay with her for nearly 4 decades? Kidman later said Neill took her under his wing from the very beginning. He didn't treat her like someone who had to prove herself. He treated her as an equal. That kindness didn't disappear once filming ended. Their friendship lasted through decades of changing careers, different countries, and countless projects. In 2019, they shared a stage again during a Big Little Lies event. Watching them together felt less like former co-stars reuniting and more like lifelong friends catching up. Few friendships in Hollywood last that long. Theirs did. After Neill's death, Kidman released a short statement that carried enormous weight. She said she was immensely saddened. She called him one of the greats, a joy to be around, and said meeting him at 18 changed the way she experienced the entire film industry. She described him as charming, kind, funny, and deeply intelligent. Most of all, she thanked him for the friendship they had shared for 37 years. It wasn't a long tribute. It didn't need to be. Every sentence reflected decades of respect and affection. But here's what makes that even more remarkable. Kidman wasn't the only one using those exact words. As more tributes appeared, the same qualities kept showing up again and again. Kindness. Warmth. Generosity. Humor. Actors from completely different generations, many who had never even worked together, described Sam Neill in almost identical ways. It stopped sounding like coincidence. It sounded like the truth. Long before Hollywood knew his name, Sam Neill was simply Nigel John Dermot Neill, born in Omagh, Northern Ireland, in 1947. When he was 7, his family moved to New Zealand after his father left the army. At school, there were so many boys named Nigel that he decided to go by Sam instead. Years later, he joked that Sam sounded friendlier and a bit more like a Labrador. That playful humor never left him. Even when speaking about himself, he rarely took things too seriously. But what kind of child was he really? Neill often described himself as awkward, bookish, and shy. He struggled with a stutter and wasn't the athletic kid everyone admired. His confidence came slowly. School plays gave him his first taste of performing. One of his earliest roles was playing a bridesmaid in The Pirates of Penzance, a story he loved telling because it always made people laugh. Those small moments planted the seeds for a career that would eventually span more than 5 decades. His breakthrough came in 1977 with the New Zealand film Sleeping Dogs, produced at a time when the country's film industry barely existed. The success of that movie opened doors across Australia and eventually Hollywood. During the 1980s, he even auditioned for James Bond. Most actors would have considered it the opportunity of a lifetime. Neill later admitted his heart simply wasn't in it. He joked that becoming the Bond nobody liked sounded worse than never getting the part at all. That honesty summed him up perfectly. Instead of Bond, audiences came to know him through an incredible range of performances. He played a submarine officer in The Hunt for Red October. He starred opposite Holly Hunter in the Oscar-winning The Piano. He terrified audiences in Peaky Blinders. He delighted fans in Hunt for the Wilderpeople. And, of course, millions knew him forever as Dr. Alan Grant in Jurassic Park. Yet something interesting happened after his death. Most people didn't begin their tributes by talking about dinosaurs. Why was that? The answer was simple. They remembered the man before they remembered the movies. In 2022, New Zealand honored him with a knighthood for his contributions to film. 3 years later, he received a Screen Legend Award. Accepting it, he laughed that surviving long enough was probably the only qualification required. Even during public celebrations, he preferred making jokes rather than talking about himself. When Neill revealed his cancer diagnosis in his 2023 memoir, Did I Ever Tell You This?, many people were surprised by how open he was. He didn't hide the difficult parts. He spoke honestly about fear, failed treatments, and moments when he genuinely didn't know if he would survive. Instead of disappearing from public life, he kept working. He kept giving interviews. He continued supporting environmental causes close to his heart, including his campaign against a proposed industrial gold mine near the region where he had spent years running his beloved winery. Through everything, he never seemed to lose his sense of humor. Friends often shared stories that sounded almost unbelievable. He named farm animals after famous Hollywood friends. He laughed about ducks, sheep, and cattle as easily as he discussed blockbuster films. Australian comedian Magda Sabansky remembered speaking with him shortly before his death. He sounded happy. Hopeful. Excited about the future. Exactly like the man people had seen celebrating remission on television. Which makes what happened next feel even harder to accept. Within hours of the announcement, tributes poured in from every corner of the entertainment world. Steven Spielberg remembered how collaborative Neill had been while filming Jurassic Park. Laura Dern spoke about decades of loyalty and friendship. Cillian Murphy called him one of the kindest and gentlest people he had ever worked with. Karl Urban thanked him for helping build New Zealand's film industry. Toni Collette described him as a beautiful and decent gentleman. Alec Baldwin said he had always hoped they would work together again. Rachel Griffiths opened a bottle from Neill's own winery to honor his memory. Even world leaders, including the Prime Ministers of New Zealand and Australia, shared public tributes. What stood out wasn't the list of famous names. It was what they all chose to say. Almost nobody focused on awards, blockbuster films, or box office success. They talked about generosity, loyalty, quiet encouragement, the way he made people feel. Those are not qualities that can be created by clever public relations. They are earned one person at a time, year after year. In the end, perhaps that's the real story of Sam Neill. Not the actor who escaped dinosaurs. Not the star who worked across 5 remarkable decades. Not even the man who faced cancer with extraordinary courage. It was the friend who remembered people. The mentor who made a frightened 18-year-old actress believe she belonged. The colleague whose kindness became legendary long before anyone thought to call it that. His final months reminded people how fragile life can be. One day you're celebrating a clean scan and planning your next adventure. The next, the world is remembering everything you left behind. And if there's one lesson carried through every tribute, every memory, and every heartfelt goodbye, it's that the greatest legacy isn't always found on a movie screen. Sometimes it's found in the lives you quietly change, without ever expecting the world to notice.